Right.
see all the contracts that were signed.
I understand that.
Yeah, so that's where the protections come from. I think I was gonna say festivals are, a very good way to get that content seen by different representatives, many agents, managers, and attorneys will attend those. I don't know the way to go about doing that other than, you can send it to me, I'll send you a submission form, and if you
Well,
sign
it's
it.
just one person. If you
I'd
and
be
then
happy
you,
to
if
take
you
a
know
look.
other people like yourself, where people could submit stuff that has to do with what we're talking about: human beings needing shelter, human beings with mental illness,
So
and
there are a couple
co-occurring
organizations.
disorders.
I would say there's Good Films, that you may want to go on their website.
What is that?
It's called Good Films.
Oh, yeah.
They take a look at a lot of projects, mostly stuff that is social justice centric. Participant Films is another organization that funds and finances and distributes different films that they have to have some kind of social impact to them. So
Yeah,
I would
right.
start with those two for sure. And then the Sundance Institute is another, place that you can go to find resources. Like a lot of those events, a lot of those organizations will host events similar to this, not as impactful, I think, as this, but similar to this, where you will have people like, from the industry like myself come up and have a conversation. And I think you're doing the exact right thing, which is taking the opportunity while you're in front of someone who's at one of these places that is the funnel to a Netflix to give you a call, to make a connection with. I will tell you, just like, because of the explosion of these new platforms, it is harder than ever to kind of thread the needle on one piece of content. So it's really about finding the person who feels super passionate about the piece of work that you put together.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. So not to put you guys on the spot, but in theme of Daniel's night, first of all, after being here for many sessions and many experiences, it's clear that what we need is a call to action. And I hate to put that in the movie industry, but you guys profoundly exhibit you can do amazing shit in this town and get it wrapped up and done. It's not the money component, we need people action and the next step. And then secondly, how do you feel personally amongst your demographic of work that the reference of Rich City is profoundly what you represent? And how do you shamefully lasso your cohorts into this action?
Right.
Shamefully, I hate to say that's almost the only power tool we have is exposure and a relatable shame. It's not like a pinpoint, but
Can you give examples of what action looks like?
a completed project. We have a foreseen. We know we need housing. We know we need services to connect. The people have sat in this room have yelled out loud, "I have money, but I don't know what to do with it." Who's here to help us build trust? But she had a label of I'm come from the DA department. Well, don't go to Skip Road. Nobody's gonna want to talk to you. But she has money. We know we have the money, but nobody seems to be organizing the action part, pulling the spokes of this
There needs
wheel
to be
together. and
organization.
saying, wow, we can complete a whole production of this, which is solve this solution.
I'd love to hear ideas of what we do. So obviously, we can tell stories like I was talking about, but you're talking about directing.
We need direction in this, the effect, the cause and effect of this.
I need guidance.
We need to help each other.
I'd love to hear what you mean. What can we do? So let's do that. Let's talk.
Okay, other questions? Yes, sir.
Hi, how you doing? I moved here from New York almost 2 years ago, and it was completely shocking to me to see Skid Row at the magnitude. It was something I didn't even think existed. I thought it was like something that existed a long time ago. And New York, when you see films and stuff, it's cool to show the grit. It's like you show it's part of like that world. you expect it when you come to New York. But you don't expect to see that coming to California, or else they don't really show it. You just see the palm trees and the and you see that. So I'm like, I know these scripts come on the desk. I know it's not new. Someone has written these scripts and they've come onto the desk, and I'm like, what is it that's stopping them from
Get it on
being
the
made?
screen.
Or what is it like? Where's that point where they're like, nah, we don't want to show this LA now? You know, it's like, so what is that? I guess, do y'all hear that? Is that talked about? You know, at all? You know, because I don't know.
Yeah, so I have not, personally read a ton of material that contextualizes the homeless population in a way that I feel is not stereotypical or one-dimensional, which I just don't feel necessary to be party to. Like, it's there. I think just in looking at, and to go back to the earlier question as well, just in looking at the different human stories that have been contextualized through the artwork here today, it's very clear that it is a multi-layered thing. They're not these people. Each person is an individual with an individual story, and oftentimes it goes back to, falling on hard times due to health care, or some kind of mental health issue, or some form of addiction, or some disassociation with the family. And I feel that those stories, if we were able to tell a true life story about something that is at the root cause, then when you show the homelessness that is oftentimes the effect of that, then you feel like you're telling a more, universal story, or something that people can get behind. Because I would hate to see, I think, if I think back to like Beverly Hills Cop, I think in Beverly Hills Cop you saw a little bit of that, but it's comedy, right? You're like, hey brother, give me $1, like that. I don't think that helps. I think what helps is Skid Row, Marathon.
Yes.
What helps is
Totally.
New Amsterdam, where you are, bringing people inside, and you're kind of digging down, and you're just like, you can put a Band-Aid on the problem, but actually what's missing is the human connection. I think when you tell those kinds of stories, so write it, like go out and create it and tell that story. I would love to see something like that we can get behind, and I know that the more we tell those stories, I think, to your point, that 30-something episode was how many years ago? And
I'm not sure you were born.
I'm sure I would. But it takes a while for that conversation to kind of rest in the spirit of the collective consciousness, and for it all to be raised, right? So
Takes time.
I would just say, tell that story.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you for what you said. I host a podcast at a learning center in East Hollywood for people that are surviving homelessness. I am an advocate myself. I'm queer. I didn't know what gentrification was when I moved to LA. I feel like that's missing from the larger dialogue, right? We're displacing people and we're ripping apart neighborhoods. And then we're saying, oh, it reminds me of the sustainability movement about 15 years ago. We were all looking at individual behaviors anyway. So I kind of want to put that maybe into the room for people to think about as they leave. But thank you for what you said, because in the first season of the podcast, I recorded it when I was on the street. My family didn't care that I was on the street. They viewed me as mentally ill and all of these things. But the thing is, I started sitting down with advocates and other people that were surviving homelessness like me. It was exactly what you just said. It's this social isolation. It's this feeling of being invisible, like I don't exist. Like people that know me now that I'm not carrying my bags around treat me different because I'm in an interim shelter, even though by definition, by the county, I'm still a homeless person, right? But it's that biggest thing. So if you can just encourage people, whoever they are, whether they're a celebrity or not, just to be in community with people that they perceive to be different and challenge those stereotypes, if it's homelessness or skin color or religion or national origin, whatever it is, because there's so many social pathologies that are leading to this. And I just feel like we look so much on the individual and how do we lift that individual up and highlight them when there's so many other people that it's like, they just kind of flounder and so many people are dying. And I have a lot of friends that have passed in the last couple of years and it's really sad. But thank you for what you said because it's really powerful. We need to be in community more. And that's part of why we're seeing so many people on the street, I believe.
And I think it's practice. I think we have to all practice compassion in this space. Whether it's just on an individual basis or getting your family to do it, or getting your friends to do it, or getting all the way to doing it on a TV show or doing it wherever you can. I think the more you practice it, the more you repeat it, the more hopefully it becomes a movement, becomes an obvious thing to do as opposed to the excitement.
What's the name of the podcast?
Realgoodstuff.org.
Thank you.
Awesome. I don't know if anyone saw the movie The Last Black Man in San Francisco, but that was definitely a film about that kind of dealt with the homelessness of gentrification, and they used art to bring the community together. And I think your podcast is a really powerful way to do that. So congratulations.
Yes, ma'am.
I was thinking when you were asking the question, like, do the fictional stories have impact? And I know, as a person of color, I'm impacted in fictional storytelling about people who look like me, how they're presented. And when we have demonstrations of homelessness in media, how it's depicted contributes to or changes the face of homelessness. We can look around this room, and I dare anyone to stand up and be able to point out who's homeless and who isn't. We are the face of homelessness. It's us. It's not us and them. It's us. But when we see it in media, it looks a certain way. So that universal image of homelessness looks like, doesn't look like this room, right? It's the stereotype. And so if there's a way for people that are in positions of power to be sensitive to it, like you were saying, you don't just take any script about homelessness and get behind it, because if it's gonna propagate additional stereotypes, then you're not signing off on it. But how do we encourage the industry or impact the industry to be sensitive to when people are just being used as extras for that backdrop of walking down the street of homelessness, what that backdrop looks like, to be true and accurate, right? It's people with degrees, it's people with families, it's people with mental health, like the whole gamut of it, not just the stereotypical hobo or bum.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely case by case, and I think what I'm excited about the work Daniel's doing is because he is really plugged into the industry and is someone that I think a lot of folks in the industry see as someone they can turn to and have a conversation with. Very similar to what you were saying, like he was homeless and has lived that life, but until he tells people his story, they have no idea. So I think it engenders like some kind of closeness, and you just got to change one decision maker at a time.
One of the things we try to do on our show is constantly challenge ourselves to go against the trope, against what you'd expect to see.
Right.
And part of that is like, for example, all three of those stories of homelessness are white people. They're not African American. And part of our attempt to do that, we do that throughout the show, constantly trying to spin everything on its head, because the problems we're dealing with, if you take the tropes out, they don't cease to be about those people. They become about us. And the degree to which you're seeing yourself or you're seeing things in a different way than you're used to seeing them, it's much easier to bridge that gap from isolation to inclusion.
Before I take another question from the audience, I want to ask Gabby a question. You mentioned that in the process of making your documentary, which is now completed.
It's complete. It's complete.
Yeah, it's completed. But you
God.
You still run with these same
Yes.
folks, and you mentioned that because you need to. Can you talk a little bit more about that? What compels you? What do you get out of it?
Yeah, I'm a runner myself, so been running since I'm 16 years old, and through this process of the documentary filmmaking, I had to run marathons, and it was quite challenging with a camera and telephone, and it was communicating with the crew. So that was quite a bit. But then after we were finished, we had the premiere and all that stuff, and I was thinking, I mean, we still have to be part of it. It's the camaraderie. The people that are in the group just are human beings, and you make friends, and you have birthday parties on Skid Row. We bring a cake. I love baking, so that's how I grew up, baking tarts. So we'll go after a run, go to Starbucks, get a container of coffee, and then we'll set up a little folding table with a tablecloth and put cakes out after the run. And we all come together and we chat and we talk about, things, what they're up to. And I'm, mentoring a person maybe. I say, look, maybe you try to apply for this job, or you have good skills, you like, to work in the bakery, try that job. Maybe start as a dishwasher. And this guy got a job. So it's just the feeling of the camaraderie, the friendships, and if you can just be a part of it, maybe a small solution for a big problem. I think that's all that I'm asking for.
So it's the basis of a shared experience.
Yeah, exactly. Share. If I can, share experience, and maybe we exchange a recipe with somebody, and I said, look, I like to try to make this. I said, okay, I'll give you the recipe. So it's just, it feels like, we have grown. I mean, we started with 4 runners. Now we are like 50, 60 people. And the LAPD runs with us. They come from Skid Row, they join us. So one of our guys was in prison for 30 years, and now he runs with the LAPD. And so it's just, I think it's just a nice group of people that when you run, you're all the same. You don't look at each other. You're rich, you live in Beverly Hills, you're a judge, or you're homeless. We're all the same, and we talk about things. It doesn't matter where you're from, and I think that's the most important part of that group.
Yes.
Thank you for everything you're bringing forward and your openness. So I was thinking about the ideas of the humanity of people and how with homelessness, and this is all pretty new. I've been here throughout the whole 3 days learning about it, because I'm working right now in the area of workforce development and around people with disabilities, and part of it has to do with the entertainment industry, how we put authentic representation forward in disability and in front of the camera, behind it, that kind of thing, and not make it the central topic, right? Like you were saying with your show, homeless person comes in, they want to be there, and that kind of thing.
Homeless person comes in there, they're in the hospital and they want to be around people. Well, what about the idea that a couple of your characters have been homeless, and then suddenly there's a conversation going on, and one discovers the other was, and this is an ongoing thread now through the program of where it comes up. And so now we're revisiting it multiple times, but it's not necessarily that character comes in, they're homeless, they're gone, they move on. So we see that a lot with disability. It's like, oh, you bring a character in, it's all about the disability, and then, oh, out they go. But really, disability is a human life experience we're all gonna have, and I'm relating that out there because it's an area that I know, right? And I don't know homelessness so much, but I'm learning about it all this weekend, and a constant thread has been the loss of humanity, the othering of people that are homeless, which is really something that resonates with me as a person with a disability, because we get othered a lot. It's like, oh, I'm not you, that's not me, that's not me. And so to be able to bring it in is like, no, this is you, this is why you need to ally, because you will be here, you will have a disability, but with homelessness, we don't know how it can happen to us, right? And so that might be another way to continue the conversation. And then the other thread that has been kind of throughout is raising our voices up. Like and you mentioned it, Peter, too, right in the beginning. We need to stand up and shout. I think when you were talking about Easy Rider or something, yeah. So, oh yes, thank you. That's right. We need to be heard. So that is something that has been said a few times this weekend, and the images are helping it be heard. But is, you know, with the people that you're in all connected with, thinking about how we get that voice as a human voice again, as a connected voice again, and then also what's in it for me, right? Like that's always the thing too when we think about business is like, what's in it for me? Like, what do I get out of it? It's like, well, you get to be a part of solving this and making sure people all are taken care of and creating community and that kind of thing. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
It's really good. It's a really good. I'd love to take that back to the writers room.
Yeah.
It's a great idea.
Way in the back.
Hi. I think the media does a great job of providing empathy for homeless people. I mean, every time you see a story about homeless people, everybody feels joined in thinking that, okay, this is something I want to help and solve and do something. I mean, almost every time there's like a ballot initiative for putting more money in homelessness, it gets passed. Everybody seems for it, going for it. But the media provides a lot of empathy, and I understand that. And it provides one-off stories that, you know, you help some people get off the streets, but as you can see, 12% increase from last year to this year. Every 2-3 people you get off the street, 100 more becoming homeless. So that's not really solving the problem. What the media doesn't provide is sort of shining a light on actual solutions, systematic change. I mean, that's what this whole thing is about, media providing change. I mean, and it's not just a one-off show or one-off whatever. I mean, it took 14 seasons of a stage reality TV show to make a narcissistic charlatan president of the United States, right? It doesn't take one series or, you know, it takes a whole systematic change. And all of Hollywood wants to solve homelessness. Everybody here wants to solve homelessness. They'll put as much resources in there. I mean, the money isn't the problem, right? It's how to find a systematic solution. And you guys can ask for stories on how to find a systematic solution. You can almost look at every other first world country. Nobody has a homeless situation like the United States of America. I mean, people from middle of America, maybe they don't have as much of a homeless situation as they are here because the income equality is not that big. But what if they met some homeless people? Maybe, I mean, there's so much the media can do and is willing to do, but it hasn't been creative enough and hasn't put the actual commitment enough over time. I mean, getting $1,000 here and there, great, whatever. You know, money's not the problem. But right now, you can see from LAHSA, they say it costs about $400 million to shelter every homeless person in Los Angeles right now. And I'm sure 10% increase will be $440 million next year. So the system has to change. There is no stories about system changing. There is no commitment of showing 10 seasons of showing how the system needs to change. Now, what can the media do? I mean, I know maybe economically it doesn't make sense. I would watch a story about changing the system of getting homeless people off the street. You know, providing actual solutions to get thousands of them off the street, not just one or two. I mean, the marathon thing is really cool. I'm not trying to hit on that, but I mean, I'm trying to see getting a bunch of them off the street. I mean, we know it took the funding of federal government for mental institutions to get them on the street. It took the funding of states to get more of them on the street. It's going to take a lot of people's minds changing because empathy's already there. Solution just isn't shown. And there's plenty of stories of solutions. Just go to every other country and you can see what the solutions there are. So what can, I know it's not putting on you, maybe it's above your pay grade, but where can we get the story to actually come up to show that, hey, we put 14 seasons on the Celebrity Apprentice. What can we do for homelessness?
Right on.
Yeah.
So, one on that Apprentice thing, like, Apprentice didn't make Trump president, racism made Trump president. You know what I mean? Like, let's say that right now. That shit's been happening for hundreds of years. Now, as far as media, like, so, obviously I put this campaign together, and I think it's important to understand that just how homeless is this big nebulous thing. So is media. Right? It's so fucking layered, and I always tell people, when you pitch a show, it's not like I got this great show, like a network comes and I want a show about 18 to 25-year-olds, I want a female lead, and it's $250,000 an episode. And the analogy I would use is no matter how good a refrigerator advertisement is when you're driving home on a billboard, if you're not in a market for a refrigerator, you're not going to buy a refrigerator. And that's how it is. And so really, I think the great thing about media is it's done a really good job. Like, look at Moonlight. Like, fuck, that movie was so good, man. Like, oh my God. And if you look at all of this stuff, and look at Big Bang Theory, the lead of that dude is gay. Like, that was the highest grossing show. Like, we're doing it, and I think it's important for us to remember, like, it's important to know who your allies are, man. You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes we end up getting combative with people that are trying to help us and engage with us. Do you know what I'm saying? It's important to be like, yo, we're down here, we're listening, and it's like, we're going to have a conversation, and we're going to be heard, and we're going to try and figure this out. But we got the biggest housing person in Skid Row, and ain't going to solve homelessness in 30 years. So if we think we can solve media narrative change in 30 minutes, we're fucking tripping. You know what I'm saying? What we got to do is start a dialogue and say, hey, how can we help and work together instead of being like accusatory. So that's something I just want to say is very important to me.
Lady right there, yes. You. Yes.
Oh, great. I just wanted to know, you talked about how you've done these episodes about people who have experienced homelessness or experiencing homelessness in your episodes. Do you actually have anyone on staff who has experienced homelessness, or do you have at least a consultant so that you're sure that you're representing it in a way that people who are and have experienced homelessness would appreciate, and that it's not just a bunch of people creating a narrative who actually haven't experienced the problem?
This is a really good question, and we do in every other way. I was gonna, in responding to you, I was gonna say we, for example, when we're depicting someone who has a disability, we always cast someone with a disability. There was recently an episode that I just directed.
But did you cast someone who experienced homelessness?
Well, let me get to that. I got the question. It's a good question. The part called for a girl who had Down syndrome, and my first instinct was I got to get a great actress to play someone who has Down syndrome. But our casting director and my producer said, no, that's not what we do. And so we ended up doing the casting search. We found this girl who was phenomenal, and it was not only a great experience creatively, just personally, everybody just grew from it and had an incredible experience. Homelessness, we don't have someone yet. We'd love to, and we should. We do it every other way. If we're doing another story, we'll get Daniel to come out and help us. We try and do everything we can to get it right. The answer to your question is no.
Yeah. Yes.
So you mentioned going into schools and talking about what it means to be an agent. Do you know if there are any programs that go into schools, maybe that serve lower income communities, that talk about screenwriting or filmmaking and what that means? Because I work in the film industry and I feel sometimes like it has been so elitist for so long that the reason those stories aren't being told in an authentic way is because the people who are writing the stories are so far removed from a lot of just from that world. And I always think like, I come from a lower income family in England and we never, no one had even mentioned that, and I feel like if they had, I know a bunch of people that would have gone into screenwriting and have amazing stories to be told.
Yeah, there are a couple of organizations here in LA. There's Inner City Filmmakers, there's the Streetlights Academy, there's the Ghetto Film School, I'm blanking on one other. There's also Working Title in the UK has put together a school. This is their first year running, 300 kids from inner city neighborhoods in the program where they're teaching them in 18 months everything from production to screenwriting across the board. Oh, there's another organization called Made in Her Image, specifically for young Black girls. So I think there's a bigger problem too. It's like there's this gap, and I think time has to there are not enough very high profile, you know, people who came from, you know, underprivileged or outside of the industry who are doing it, so that then other people who see them can say, oh, I can do it too. So, you know, that there's not a lot of desire for it. You know, oftentimes the very busy administrators of these schools are only kind of filling the needs of the school. So if there's not a ton of people saying, oh, I really want to learn about this, and they don't know they want to learn about it. You know, so I know the Motion Picture Association does a whole campaign around who are in the credits and what are those jobs and what does it mean to get those jobs, because all of those jobs are union jobs and they tend to be, I'm going to give that job to my cousin, my uncle, my nephew, my what have you, and that you never break that homogeneity. But I want to go back to that your point about the solution, and I would just say, what is the solution that we're telling the story about? Is it about building housing? Is it about mental health? Is it about solving healthcare? If we can pinpoint what that solution is, then we can design an entire narrative about it, around it. I think the problem is we haven't found the solution. So, you know, when we get there, I'd love to figure out how we do that, because you're right. You're absolutely right. But it's so multifaceted that, you know, I'd go to Mark Gordon in a second and say, hey, Mark, we should do this is the solution to homelessness. I'm sure he'd want to write that story. So what is the solution? I'd love to hear it. Yeah.
I'm going to call on myself. Actually, we
Never do that.
We do have solutions to ending homelessness. I'm not sure how that plays into what people want to see in a film or in a movie. Not that human stories aren't relevant and important, but the process for creating housing and getting services and all that sort of stuff. I'm not sure I would watch that movie, having done it for a long time. And I think what maybe is a bit of a disconnect, I know the two of you work in a context where you need viewers. You need...
Not anymore.
Okay, well, but it's a profit-making enterprise by and large, right?
Yeah.
And is that what people are going to spend their dollar on, whether it's viewing on television or in a feature or whatever the case may be, unless you all become documentarians like Gabby.
Lose your shirt.
I think what a good next step would be for this organization is to invite maybe 100 writers to come and sit down with you.
We
and
can do that.
talk
Can
about
you do that,
the
Jeb? We
solution.
can do that. Yes.
Those writers,
Yeah,
like
I mean, we'd be happy
Peter
to.
and like the creative
Sure.
folk that do it. Like, I'm a reader, I'm not a writer. So you invite 100 writers
We can do that.
from across the nation, from underprivileged homes, you know, from different backgrounds. Invite them and tell them the solution, and you will see what comes from it. Maybe we could create it as a festival or some kind of screenplay competition or something like that. I'd be happy to help and figure out. We can connect with Participant or Good Films or something and figure out, because if we can hit on a story that fairly depicts a solution from someone who has lived and breathed this work for 30 years, then I think we can galvanize the community.
I mean, we hire people who have experienced homelessness as well. Typically, they become residents, but they also then work for us to help people make that transition from living on the streets into moving into houses. It sounds simple and sounds good, not always easy, right? And so they become that connection between, because they understand what that experience is like.
It's a magic trick, though. I mean, because you have to, sure, you can identify what you want to talk about, but until you find a story that is compelling and it isn't just about the issue, you have nothing. I mean, it's like Shine. Remember the movie Shine? You guys remember that movie? About the piano player? Homeless guy who had some mental issues, brilliant piano player. It's like that story was about someone just becoming himself as a piano player. And it was like a journey from him from the street into going back to Carnegie Hall again and playing this piece, and then ending up back to the street.
Sonos.
Yeah,
Sonos.
that's right. I mean, there's some great movies that have been made of it, but it's all
was on one of our panels last
Yeah.
night.
Yeah,
You
yesterday.
don't need that microphone.
I know,
I
right?
like the microphone.
Go ahead.
So I just wanted to say one thing. I've been listening, sitting here listening. And one thing that I really think is when you say stories or when you say, let's create a movie that depicts what's going on. And we've all watched the movies, we've all seen these things, and what do we do? Oh, that's a nice story. Just like what you said. Oh, that's a nice story. But it doesn't change anything. And to be perfectly honest, and some of you guys know my background, I come from the rap group NWA. No one cared about us until we ended up in their home. The kids in their home started listening to NWA and they're like, oh, we gotta fix this. So the way to fix it, do a movie about the homeless in Beverly Hills. Come into Beverly Hills. You know what I mean? And then the people in Beverly Hills, the people in Bel Air, the people in the rich neighborhoods are going, we gotta fix this. Because they're coming to us next. And I'll just be honest. Because if you just do a feel-good story, everybody's gonna feel good. And a few people are gonna help. But if you make it an urgency, something that the people who don't want it, they're like, well, we're gonna spend money to fix it because we need to stop it here. Because we don't want it to come here. And that's how I see it. You gotta almost turn it into a horror film. You gotta turn it into something where people get scared and people get freaked out about it, and then they'll do the right thing. That's what I see.
Yeah.
Such a great voice.
Put the cap.
No producer. Why don't we do our own?
That's what I was gonna say, exactly what he's saying.
Yeah, let's do it.
If
Let's
we
do
create
our
a
own.
mastermind group and we get something, we find the story, we'll get the stories. We have the stories here, we have stories on the street, take us 2 days to find a number of stories. If we do something really great here, get a mastermind group and do something together, will you take a look at it and take it seriously?
Absolutely. You have a producer here. If Dak says it's cool, we'll take a look at it. You guys now need to do the work, because obviously he's done the work in pulling everyone together. If Dak blesses it, it's blessed. And you know what? I would even, I wanted to just add to what was said before about like being in the homes. Like, I don't know if anyone knows the singer, the rapper XXXTentacion.
Yes.
Ever since I learned about his story, I noticed an increased rise in people around me, the very white, elite, privileged Beverly Hills folks who I work with, talking about mental health issues because their sons and daughters learned about his story, and now they have to talk to their sons and daughters at home. And I mean, as I mentioned, my daughter's over there not even listening to me. As a parent, the only thing you care about is connecting with your child, right? So if there was a music artist, a basketball player, any of those folks who started to like talk about that issue, having lived the life, it then becomes the thing they care the most about. And I feel like that's the only thing. I mean, I have to tell you, like some of my colleagues, when we do a lot of conversations in workforce development around embracing our differences and what are the things you're most shameful of, and my colleagues are like trying to talk to my son, and I'm like, you have no other problems in life other than talking to your child? Like, what a beautiful life. But it is really to the point about NWA being in their households. If the kids are doing it, the decision makers, their parents, they're going to pay attention to it.
You, and then you, and then you. I don't know your names.
You want me-
Yes.
My name is Michelle Irving, and I'm out of Watts. I grew up in Watts. And I came here because I'm an elected official of the Watts Neighborhood Council as the homeless liaison. So I wanted to learn more about what it was that you were doing. And it's just so profound is because I was in the developments earlier talking about, I'm getting ready to shoot my talk show called Getting to the Bottom of It, and dealing with gentrification and displacement and what it looks like. And letting them tell their stories, like the young women whose kids are being wrongfully removed from CPS to break up families and cause homelessness because they then lose their income and they become homeless because they have no foundation to be able to stand on, and just doing investigations and going to the assemblyman saying, hey, look, we need to change either the law, the way the laws are set up with dealing with CPS and the way they're dealing with wrongfully coming in and removing the children. I dealt with young men calling me, dealing with police corruption, being falsely locked up for crimes that they did not even commit, and nobody's coming into those type of communities holding people accountable. So now that I've come out of prison, I've come out of being homeless, I've got a certificate of rehabilitation, started a nonprofit organization called A Better You. Why waste a life when you can build one? I'm empowering lives. I'm giving hope now to those. I came back from the Bay Area. I wrote a play. I'm writing. I found out with growing up and being in my times of incarceration that there was another creative side of me that was yet to be told. So now I'm doing my documentary called Deep in the Struggle. At this age, how deep of the struggle were you in? Well, I became homeless because my mom's husband tried to molest me and she didn't believe me and it put me out and I had no other choice. So this was a very sensitive subject because it opened up a lot of memories that you try to close up. So people don't tell their stories because they don't want to relive their past. So it's easier for them to be in a numb situation of dealing with their crisis and dealing with what they're challenged with. I come to find out storytelling has definitely been a healer for me. It's something that makes me laugh. I do comedy. I get up there and I do comedy and I tell about the things that I experience. Having people to be able to see me and watch coming back from being homeless and where there was once unity in the development. Before, they start coming up with a 20-year plan, and that's what we need to understand. By me being an elected official, I now know that they're 20 years ahead of us. We can never really catch up to somebody that's already predestined how they're going to deal with the individuals. How can we build a population of homelessness? Well, we'll come up with the one strike law, which put everybody out of their units if their children get in trouble. Then we'll come up with, okay, if this person has been convicted of a felony, they have no way to really get into a unit because of their background. So if we're going to talk about reforming homelessness, we got to give people a second chance. And I am that second chance, and I thank God that I'm able to come back now and tell the story. I'm glad that I have people in the community that I'm going to give them a platform through my talk show to be able to talk about what displacement and what does gentrification and how does it come? Why does it come into the communities that they call hoods or ghetto or places that's been broken down? And another thing is that you have people that come into the community of Watts capitalizing millions and billions of dollars to provide services for people that never get the services. So then they never learn how to transition out of the community. Then you have a community of individuals that's oppressed and suppressed because they can't afford to buy a house or they never been taught. So now I'm in a position of coming out of being homeless and going through all the things that I'm going through, and I'm going through those fundamental steps to purchase a home so that I can help those young women because they're not getting the support that they need once their children are taken. They're just thrown out into the street. They expect for them to get on drugs because there's no support. So what do? I go to those CPS meetings with them young women. I advocate for them. I speak on their behalf. I let them know their rights, and I make sure that their rights are no longer being violated. So I'm writing stories and doing documentary on that so that we can change what's going on.
Thank you. We have time for 2 more questions.
Awesome.
The gentleman in the cap and then the dreamer.
So I just wanted to make a quick analogy. Like, let's pretend I hated Snapchat and I wanted to kill them. And like, I'm not gonna make a documentary film about how bad. I mean, maybe I could go that route, but you know what? Actually, Kylie Jenner put out a tweet about Snapchat, and within hours, the stock tanked to 6%. It lost $1.3 billion. Celebrities, like, you can't bring attention where it isn't, and the attention of the general population is towards celebrities, unfortunately. So I was wondering if there's any sort of lobbyist organization towards celebrities to make them as aware of the platform that they have, because honestly, if we had like 5 top celebrities just tweet about homelessness, it would be a hell of a lot easier than trying to make some movie about it. It'd be a hell of a lot more impactful. And like, how many more sponsor posts do they need to do? Like, can we raise a fund where we pay them to rate? What is it, like celebrities to go tweet about it. And that'll be like, it's like such
Make
a direct,
movies.
like, cause it's very hard to divert attention where it's not, because people, I mean, they see homelessness and they're like, like maybe it's not, whatever, but then they're like on Twitter and Instagram, they're like, so much more talking about it. And it's kind of like the point you brought up about X and like how his influence and his platform is so powerful, and there's so many like key issues in the world that need to be addressed, and honestly I think the solution, it lies with the people who have the attention, which is the celebrities.
I wish they had that kind of power. I mean, they have power of attention, but they also, if you look at Leonardo DiCaprio, all of his attempts on the environmental movement, he does, or even alcohol, he's done almost as much damage as he's done good, because it's politicized. It's another celebrity thinking they're important and that they have the right to enter this space. I mean, it's a tricky place to operate. Me with my 30 Twitter followers, I have the influence. But even if I did, I know I would feel a little bit confused about the way to help them to use it. I mean, it is power. It certainly does get people to pay attention, but they pay attention in both directions, partly because celebrities have kind of a built-in criticism. People have a built-in criticism because they feel like, they think they're trying to tell me what to believe or what to do. So it's complicated. And I wish there was a way to help government. There's just not.
Yes.
Thanks. Well, one thing I was going to say is that, in response to your question, that most agencies have foundations. Thanks. Most agencies have foundations that connect celebrities with causes. So that's one way to, make that happen. But I also agree that the elite gets, stomped on a lot. I'm here because I am an ex-literary manager for about 30 years. I know many of your colleagues, and I know Liz Dean and Schulner really well. And I decided, I always thought that I had a real sense of social justice. And I came across, it didn't really kick in, sort of like what Daniel was saying with this gentleman back then, like why not right now? The time that it takes for things to progress is, I had a child, and that's what changed a lot of where my focus went. And so I put a lot of effort into that. I saw a photo online that's had a picture of a homeless man with a sign that said, I used to be your neighbor. And it really hit home for me. And so now my son and I go to, we work for the Hollywood Food Coalition, and I tutor for homeless kids, and among many other things. But one of the things I wanted to talk about, and Daniel and I will talk about this later, is that when I left the management industry, I wanted to keep working with writers, right? Talking about people finding their voices. And I started a script competition called the Finish Line Script Competition, which is now in its 5th year. And we're now putting together through sponsorship a social advocacy portion of our competition, which is an offshoot of the regular competition. That's just all of the scripts that come in. We get over 2,000 scripts a year. And that social advocacy portion is going to be about homelessness or mental health or LGBTQ or any kind of issues that are socially aware issues that need to be highlighted. And in our competition, because of my experience as a manager and because of my age, I have a lot of, my Rolodex is full. And so part of what we do is whoever wins the competition gets filmmakers, agents, showrunners, writers, producers, everything. And it's sort of like a fellowship in that regard. They get a real sense of it. And so I am creating what some of you are talking about. And hopefully we'll start this year in the new year, where if you can't afford to send it in, we'll take it for free, because it's coming from a real place of where people are living that world, or people who are very, who are wonderful writers and so on that you guys represent are sending competition into the competition and so on, and we're going to get those materials to those 40 people or whoever they are, people who are socially conscious and who know that they have the means to get it out there. So people are doing it. I think it's, and there are lots of, not lots, but there are places where you can get your work and ideas out. Blacklist certainly does it. They have, they partner with different organizations to magnify LGBTQ scripts and so on and so forth. So we're doing it, and that's one of the reasons I came here, was because I wanted to hear what you guys were saying about it, and let you guys know that we're going to be doing it. And we'll figure it out with Daniel in some way, and maybe I can call you or talk about it with you guys at some point, and just have you read them. At the end of the day, it's just about knowing that the scripts are out there, that they're good, and that they're, they've been vetted, and they're strong pieces of writing that might be able to tell those stories. But it took me a long time to get to that place where I wasn't just doing something for me. And I think that just is everybody's process, getting out of my own stuff and having to look past it. So.
Thank you. We're going to go over, so I think I've missed you. Go ahead and ask your question quickly if you can, and then we have...
So one thing, just for solutions, labavn.org is the city website, and they are currently seeking innovative and creative solutions for housing, in part for the homeless. So I just wanted to throw it out there if anybody's interested or has that kind of mindset to look that up, because the city is actively looking for solutions. Soros Justice Fellowship, unfortunately the application just passed, but they just did a whole fellowship where they were looking for different types of media, and they were looking for funding about issues, and one of them was homelessness. So just look or Google Soros Justice Fellowship. They have one every year, but there's a bunch of things that are just like that, where they're looking for artists and people in media and creatives. The third thing was, if anybody is interested in doing any type of story in Lamar Park, about homelessness, I would just want to throw out Lamar Park, where we actually sort of embrace our homeless population. Last night, we had a party for Mike Shaw, who I did not know was a former famous basketball player, who I've been talking to and hugging and embracing this man for a year. He sleeps outside my office. I did not know that he was lost and that his family had been looking for him, and this man was in our community, and somehow they all found each other last night, and we had this great, amazing party for him. But in the last 3 or 4 weeks, I walked outside my office. There were 2 little young 19-year-old girls living in a one-person tent next to a dumpster because they were afraid of being human sex trafficked. So they had picked a place in between a dumpster. Anyway, found out about them, let a couple people know, spent hours on the phone, got a call 3 days ago that they have been housed, and I just...
We're going to have to stop.
I don't know what happened. Anyway, I broke out in tears when I found out that they had been housed, and the cafe next to me gave them jobs and all this other stuff. So Lamar Park is an amazing place. And the last thing that I want to say, I'm also in the neighborhood council. I'm a former city commissioner. I'm also an attorney. I'm in this issue in so many different ways. Everybody is trying to come up with solutions, but if you look at Venice and how hard they're fighting against the solution, part where I think you guys are amazing is in changing the narrative, which is what we're all saying. But when they think that homeless people are dirty and crazy and whatever they're saying in fighting against solutions. And that's why I think the media part of it is so important in changing the face of the narrative.
Thank you. So let's say thanks to our panel who came out tonight and shared their Let's also thank Daniel. This is the amazing series. Thank you all for coming out and participating. I know a number of you have done multiple meetings over the last 3 days, so thank you all for your insights, your feedback, your participation. I think we all heard you. And obviously, we need to incorporate everybody's ideas into the solutions that we expect to see as quickly as possible. So thank you all again.
Thank you.
Thank you.